Hey guys, what is up? As you may have guessed at this point, it is Brook, or as you may know me as the Undead DM, and I am back at it again with another car talk for you today. So let's just get right into this. So, I was talking with the Pack Tactics community about a day ago, yesterday as of this recording, and I had been working on what I think would be my greatest achievement, which is the Monk class rework for 5th edition. Been working on it for a little while, and I had gotten a significant amount of information in there, and I had sent it over to the Pack Tactics homebrew community server to kind of get some feedback on it. And the man of many opinions, Cybrock of Cybrock Opinions, lent his aid in this, as well as Fade from Fade Shock from Foxtail Foundry. They lent in some of their words of wisdom. But that's not what this car rant is about today. This car rant is about a very particular set of words that really resonated in a very strange way with me. And that was a feature I had given monks, and I plan on giving, or if I have not already, I have done. I plan on giving to the monk, the fighter, the barbarian, and the rogue. Basically, all the martial classes. And the half-casters will be getting something similar, but that's a video for another day. Anyway, I had given the monk this thing called Precision Strike. And it's essentially Sharpshooter or Great Weapon Master, but for your unarmed strikes or monk attacks, like monk weapon attacks. And it does the same thing, and you take a -5 to hit and deals +10 damage, if you do hit. Now, I had sent this over, and Cybrock had given me some of his opinions, and I took a lot of them into heart when making a few changes. But one that really stood out to me was that he thought Precision Strike was, I believe his words were lazy and lame, or something along those lines, which struck me as very odd. Because something like Precision Strike, the power attack as we call it in the community, is kind of a standard for martials to have. As a lot of builds, they rely on things like Sharpshooter and Crossbow Expert, or Great Weapon Master and Polearm Master to function in melee, or ranged if you're using the ranged weapons. So to say that power attack, just giving it to everybody, is lame and lazy and doo-doo, or whatever the specific words he had used at the time, is a bit strange to me, because mechanically it should seem fine. It should be okay, because mathematically it would be acceptable. It would be, yeah, it's boring, sure, but it's functionally okay. I know that might be just an opinion of his, but I like to just spin my opinion on this. So when it comes to power attack, I do agree in the sense that it's kind of lame. Everybody has it, so the feats kind of make no sense. Why would you have Great Weapon Master or Sharpshooter if you have an ability that does the same thing? While I did rework the feats, I don't think I've given Cybrock those feats yet, so I don't think he has an opinion on them as of yet. And that's probably my mistake. I will take accountability for that one. That is my mistake. However, I think not having power attack in some capacity is not as mechanically devastating as a lot of optimizers would think, because reality, you're just taking disadvantage for the potential of crit damage or slightly better crit damage. Because, remember, disadvantage, mathematically, is essentially just a -5. So, you're essentially taking disadvantage on an attack roll to potentially gain advantage on the damage roll. Which is, or like double advantage, because you're doubling the +5, or the doubling the -5. So you're essentially getting double advantage by taking disadvantage. I'm not necessarily saying that that's a fun, interesting mechanic, but that it mathematically works. So saying it's boring and lame, yeah, it is true. It is true. But I think anything that you would do to buff the martials that doesn't include power attack is a bit off. Because if you go with power attack, you can buff them a lot more. In my opinion, you can buff them a lot more because now that they have that fallback of, well, I already have a high modifier, but I'm not dealing a lot of damage, solely because like the features that they have at the time that they may have chosen themselves aren't optimal for the situation that they're in, or maybe they don't want to choose optimal choices because something fits their build better, then that's perfectly fine. And rightfully they should be at least somewhat, I don't want to say punished, but more they should be more like incentivized to play more optimally. But power attack, I think, gives the people who are playing optimally that power fantasy that Cybrock talks a lot about, where you get really big hits. And then the people who don't play optimally, they get that once in a while very lucky large amount of damage. I think it is still very much part of the power fantasy, but I do agree that it is boring. It is quite boring to just, every attack, well, I take a -5, and I get +10 if I hit, and if my modifiers are high enough, who cares? It's like, I'm going to hit anyway, because I have this magic weapon, and then I have my stuff maxed out. I have my ability score maxed out, so who cares? I agree. It is quite lame. But I don't really know of an alternative outside of removing it and then making the to hit better. Because if you just give them flat bonuses to hit and make them do more damage, I don't know if that would offset the power budget, as he put it, was that every time you rework or try to change something in a class or subclass or item, there's a power budget. And that if you put too much power budget into one thing, you can't put it anywhere else because then it'll just be overpowered. So I'm very torn. Like, I want to keep power attack in a similar vein, but at the same time I realize it's boring and I know there's gotta be a better solution, but I can't think of it. Because if I'm gonna be honest, I'm probably at this point just recreating 4th edition, as we all are. As Cybrock has made many times in his videos jokes that we are just reinventing 4th edition. Which is partially true. We basically are reinventing 4th edition. But the one thing I didn't like about 4th edition, in my opinion, is that weapons had their own proficiency bonuses. They had their own bonuses based on what kind of weapon that you were wielding. Some of them would be +2s, and some of them would be +3s. The compensation is that the ones that hit more, i.e. the ones with the +3s, had lower damage, and the ones with +2s hit less consistently, but they often had higher damage. And I don't remember if this is true, I could be misremembering, but I believe there was a small subset of weapons that are +1 to hit, but had a massive amount of damage tied to them. and also all these like crazy abilities, I didn't particularly like that. I didn't like the fact that weapons had their own modifiers. And sure, you could argue, well, magic weapons in 5th edition right now do that, where they all either fall into a +1, +2, or +3, so they all have their own modifiers as it is. And you would be correct. But these were just normal, mundane weapons that had these. If you got a magic weapon in 4th edition, it would get better. It would still have the proficiency bonus, but if they had another bonus on top of that to hit, it would just add on top of it. And I get it, 4th edition and 5th edition are totally different games, where one is more numbers and pluses and minuses based, and this one is more disadvantage advantage based. But I just didn't like the whole, if you're wielding this kind of axe, you get a +2, but if you're wielding this kind of axe, you get a +3 and you get less damage. I just didn't like that. So, if any of you out there, especially Cybrock, if you're watching this, or if Fade is watching this, pretty much anybody from the Pack Tactics community is watching this, leave a comment. Tell me what you would suggest instead of power attack. Because I'm kind of at a loss. I'm thinking proficiency bonus subtracted from your to hit, and then you get double your proficiency bonus like a lot of other people suggest. But I don't know, that feels even more lame. I really don't know what you would do besides just remove it and make everything else more powerful. Or just give them a bonus to hit. Like Fade Shock's Monk, where they have an ability called Momentum, where every time they miss an attack with an unarmed strike or monk weapon, they get a +1 bonus, and it stacks up into +5s, I think. And then the moment that you do hit, it gets reset to 0. So if you make an attack with an unarmed strike and you miss, you get a +1. Then you make the attack, you make the second unarmed strike with a +1, and if you miss, you get a +1 to that again, so you get +2 on your third unarmed strike, and if you hit, it just gets reset to 0. I mean, I do like that, but I think that would just be kind of me just going, I like this mechanic, so instead of dealing precision strike, I'm just going to take this, and then just put it here. And, I don't know, I get there's a lot of inspiration being taken from different places, and I do tend to do that. But I don't know, that just feels kind of lazy to me, where I just rip the ability straight out and put it in there, like, oh, now it's mine. It's not really. It's kind of like you just couldn't think of anything, and you just took it and put it in there. So, if you guys have any other suggestions, please let me know, because I'm at a loss here.